Thanks very much for attending our webinar today. I look forward to your participation and to your contributions as we go through this webinar. Since this is the fourth quarter and we're now at the middle part of October, I thought it might be timely to have a discussion really focused on what are the decisive steps or areas that you can focus on to accelerate sales and revenue into this year. So many of the executives that I work with are really looking at the finish line at the end of the year and trying to determine what can they do to accelerate revenue. What can they do to help the buyer move through the buyer's journey quicker? How do you accelerate the process? What are the different things that you can do to really make that happen? So based upon working with over 300 different B2B companies, we thought we'd like to share with you today some of our thoughts, some of the best practices that you can apply right now. And we look forward to your participation as we go throughout today. So just in terms of my background, Craig Remy and I co-founded On Demand Advisors 10 years ago. And we started with a very simple mission to help B2B executives like yourself scale revenue, do it in a dramatic fashion, do it so it's capital efficient, and also do it so that you can go win your markets. Prior to doing this, I've been a CEO for public and private companies in Silicon Valley. And all told, I've helped build 10 B2B technology and services companies. So there are quite a few learnings that I had along the way. And since I came up through initially Chief Revenue Officer for the company, and then Chief Operating Officer, then COO, and then CEO, and then so forth, and Chairman, I realized that as you work with customers and prospects, it's really important to understand the buyer's journey and understand how you facilitate that and accelerate that. Now, as we go through today's webinar, please let me know if you have questions, post those questions, if you would, in GoToWebinar today. And what we'll do is I'll get those questions answered either during the webinar, but at the very least, we'll make sure we address all the questions that you have and contributions you have before we leave the webinar today. So again, thank you very much for your participation. What I'd like to do is, I do have a couple of different polls, and I'd love to get your input on these questions. So the first one I look at as we're hearing now in the fourth quarter is, what's your biggest challenge to enabling sales and revenue growth? Is it creating enough quality sales leads? Is it reducing the sales cycle? Is it improving sales conversions? Is it getting new sales reps up to speed quickly? Or is it getting a foothold in the account so that you can find other opportunities as you move through that process of the engagement? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch this poll and ask everybody to take a few moments, if you could, and give us your participation, because it's really timely in terms of understanding that. And of course, I'm asking you to really look at making one choice here, although many would apply. So it's really, what's the ultimate challenge that you have today? Is it really, you need more quality leads? I talked to a lot of executives where the sales cycle is too long, and they're looking at how to shorten that. Are you getting leads, but it's hard to convert them into sales? Sales opportunities, sales conversions. For some, as Forrester talks about, it's a challenge getting new sales reps up to speed, getting them productive, making sure that they're meeting their goal. And then for others, it's really getting involved with an account, involved with the management team, involved in terms of having a decisive step going forward in terms of engagement. So thank you very much. And so I'm going to share with everybody the information here. So thank you for participating in this. Let me share the information. So 33% of you stated that creating enough quality leads is your main challenge. 27% talked about reducing your sales cycle. 13% talked about improving sales conversions. 7% getting new sales reps up to speed. And 20% stated that your challenge really is getting a foothold in the account. So good distribution, and thank you very much for participating. So we're going to cover all 5 of these areas today as we work together. So again, thank you for participating. It really helps get the feedback from all the participants here, and appreciate your contributions. Okay, so let's talk about the 5 areas or 5 decisive steps that you can address right now in Q4. The first one is increasing the volume and quality of your lead volume. So for many people we talk to, they just don't have enough leads. And so once you even get some volume up, then the question really gets down to is, do you have the quality? Are they sales ready? Are they in the right target audience? Are they in the right target market? Are you working with the right titles and the right personas? So that's a challenge. The next is reducing the sales cycle. And we're going to show you how to do that and how do you start enabling the buying process on your website. So it's really kind of transformational in terms of how much can you do up front when a buyer or a potential buyer hears about your company, hears about your services or your solutions. Typically, the first thing they're going to do is come to your website. So that's going to be step one. So the question really gets down to is, how do you start enabling the sales and buying process on your website so that by the time you're engaged with that prospect, they really are educated, preferences set, and you're going down that process together. So really in a perspective of taking 25 to 33% of the sales cycle off the time. We're going to talk about improving your sales conversions. So there are 2 types of conversions we're going to talk about. One is when you have somebody that's interested, they're, let's say, a marketing lead, how do you convert them into a SQL or sales qualified lead? And then how do you convert that sales qualified lead or opportunity into a customer? We're going to talk about how to deploy a land and expand strategy. And finally, we're going to talk about how do you gain immediate productivity with new sales team members. Okay, just a question here. I'm going to see if there's any questions we have from anybody right now. So again, please post your questions and we'll make sure we address them as we go through our session today. So thank you very much. At one of the companies that Craig and I basically built, I was the CEO and Craig was the Chief Marketing Officer. We created this map. We call it the Revenue Acceleration Map. And we're going to talk about some of the elements on this map today. It's really talking about how do you scale revenue and do it in a mathematical, methodical way. How do you do it using best practices? And what we've done over the past 10 years is refine this map. The one thing I wanted to point out to you is that we've got 3 funnels on the bottom of the map. And I'm going to walk you through something we call funnel math. This first one is, how do you get enough people that are interested in your company, in your products and services? The second funnel is, how do you convert them into sales opportunities? And the third is, how do you close those sales opportunities? So the key with funnels is you want to make sure that you have enough volume and that you also have velocity. So we'll walk through this area, and you'll notice each of these areas, these funnels are underneath different parts of the map. This is building your lead volume. This is about sales being optimized. And this is about other revenue vectors that you can use to increase your revenue growth, such as working with partners, such as working with upsell, cross-sell programs, and such as launching new services and new offerings to your prospects and customers. So again, we'll cover all this in greater detail. So when we're thinking about not only this quarter, but we're thinking about next year in 2019, we typically break this down into 3 funnels instead of 1 funnel. So today, when you think about running your company, operating the company, scaling the company, you may look at all the prospects that you have, all the potential buyers in 1 funnel. We typically like to break that into 3 funnels and look at what are the stages, what is the advancement of your prospect through the buying process. And so we talked about this, the 3 funnels. And so we'll typically take 1 funnel and break it into 3. Now, let's say one of your goals is to increase revenue by another $4 million. And that would be a great example. And whether you're doing that this quarter or whether you're doing that for next year and thinking through that, if your ACV, average contract value, is $50,000, which could be a subscription, could be a license, could be a service, in that case, you're going to need 80 transactions. And so most companies I work with, in fact, I think every company I've worked with, basically said or have a good idea what the conversion is to take a sales qualified lead or opportunity to close. And that's typically a conversion of 1 out of 4, like 25%, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 5, but you typically know that really well. So what that basically means, for this period of time, you need 320 sales qualified leads to make that happen as far as 80 transactions. Now, this middle funnel feeds the third funnel. So this middle funnel is, how do you create the 3,200 market qualified leads? Market qualified leads are people that have expressed overt interest in your services. Maybe they've downloaded a white paper or ebook. They've come to a webinar. They've come to your website and requested some information from you, and likewise. So there are a lot of different ways to create MQLs or market qualified leads. For most B2B companies, the conversion is 10%. So that means for everybody that raises their hand and says, you know, I'm really interested in Intact. I'm really interested in SAP. I'm really interested in Logiware. What that basically means is that about 10% of them are ready to buy, go through the buying process with you. So that gets us into this math here, where what we say is, well, we've got to create a lot of market qualified leads. And so this first funnel is, how do you create the engine basically to create those market qualified leads? And then you could break those numbers down on a monthly basis. So this model was based upon $4 million over 1 year. And we said, well, we need 270 market qualified leads per month. We need to convert those into 27 opportunities. Then we need to close 7 of those. And by the way, Lynn, you asked a question, can you get a copy of the map? And your answer is absolutely. Be happy to send you a copy today of the revenue acceleration map. So I don't know if you're looking at this type of math in terms of thinking through that, but it's a great way to have this integrated customer acquisition process, revenue creation process nailed down, because it really is the integration between marketing and sales. It's the integration in terms of bringing prospects aboard and basically having the smooth handoff that happens between all areas of the company. Now you can create these 3 funnels not only for the direct selling, you can create them for upsell, cross-sell. So for instance, one of our clients has 6,000 universities and schools that are currently their customers, and they asked us to come in and help them architect an upsell, cross-sell campaign with the 15 different service offerings that they created. And so that's another way to do that. When Craig and I were at Intact, we actually recruited and brought aboard 300 different private label sellers, resellers of our solution that took our solution to market. And so 50% of our revenue actually came in through partners and 50% came direct. So these 3 funnels can be architected for sell through partners. They can be architected for direct sales program. They can be architected for new product launches, and they can be architected for upsell, cross-sell. So let's cover the 5 areas in detail that you can apply right now today to start really looking at increasing the revenue and sales contributions for the quarter. So the first is increasing the volume and the quality. So what we suggest you put in, if you haven't already, is a demand generation engine. And we'll talk through the elements of what that means. But an engine is something that once you put your foot on the accelerator, it gives you more horsepower, it gives you greater velocity, and that's the way this engine works. So once you understand what the numbers are that we talked about in terms of architecting the funnels and what you need to create as far as the number of market qualified leads, sales qualified leads, and new customers on a monthly, quarterly, and annual basis, the next thing we talk about is these next 3 areas. So the objective here is to build out these 2 funnels and have the 270 MQLs that you need per month, and then also be in a position where you can convert those into 27 sales qualified leads. So let me walk you through the elements. For many companies, they have excellent, and you may have excellent information available on your products and services today. Typically, a lot of the information that we see out there today is really excellent information representing your company, representing the services, spec sheets, detailed documents, and so forth. A lot of times what we're looking for is what's going to engage the buyer. So what's the buyer trying to get addressed? So one of the things that we suggest you consider doing, if you haven't done it recently, is doing a rigorous market survey of your target stakeholders. And when you do that, you can really help assess in a rigorous way, let's say across a population of 50 or 100 or 150 decision makers, what are the pains that you solve, and how important are those pains to your target audience? What are the decision drivers that you can use to help drive the decision into this quarter? What's your value propositions, both tactical as well as strategic, and how do they prioritize them? What's the importance of undertaking major initiatives? So for instance, one of our clients provides a solution to help companies in the area of sustainability, and most large companies have sustainability initiatives happening. So really being able to understand the drivers for that and understand how you're going to help them with best practices around sustainability is one of the key goals that this company has. So that becomes the ongoing conversation that this company, our client, would have with their customers and prospects. A lot of other things you can look at in a survey too is your pricing or subscription model, validating the buying process, understanding what functionality that your target audience is looking for from your solution, understanding where they are with current placement. So are you in a virgin market? Are you in a replacement market? Are you in another type of market? And then also understanding if they were looking for your type of service, who would they talk to? Where would they go, and so forth? So this is one of the major elements to your demand generation engine, is really getting your messaging down in terms of what's important to your buyer. And we suggest most companies do this at least every couple of years, because what the buyer wants, what your buyer wants, does change. Okay? The next thing is, the next component of that engine is having a marketing automation and CRM solution. So marketing automation is how do you capture all the different campaigns that you're using to create the interest, the market qualified leads for your company. And that should be in some type of system like a HubSpot, a Pardot, a Marketo, a SharpSpring. And those systems are excellent systems, and we've been putting them in for now 10 years with best practices to make sure that becomes your one source of truth about all of your prospects that you want to engage with in your target audience. It also allows you to look at how you're going to score and grade those leads, so you can figure out which ones are more important. So if you have, let's say, 5,000 new leads per month, what's really the 500 you want to spend your time on? So how do you do that? And so this is a great way to do that. And so the next thing you need is reach. When I talk to decision makers across North America and beyond, I always ask the question is, what percentage of your target audience are you reaching today? And typically, it's less than 20%. For some companies, it might be as low as 5% or 3%. The challenge with that, of course, is that that means that, let's say, 80% of your target audience may not know you exist. And if they don't know you exist, or they don't know your value propositions, they can't engage with you. So one of the important things about having a demand generation engine is having a strategy on how you're going to engage 100% of your target audience over a period of time. One of our clients is a company called AvExchange, and we helped them do that. We helped them, they were engaged in a market that they had been engaged in for 12 years, And they were really phenomenal at what they did. Unfortunately, about 80% of their market did not know that they existed. And so what we helped them do was reach 100% of that target market to go win that market first, and then look at getting into adjacent markets that made sense for them. What's really important today is creating compelling offers. So as we talked about the 3 funnels, there are offers that help your buyer on their journey. If they're in the first funnel, it's about getting discovered. If it's about the second funnel, it's about getting selected. And if it's third, it's about getting purchased or making that investment in your solutions. And so what you really need is you need compelling content that's going to engage your buyer, compelling content that's going to keep the conversation going if they're not ready to buy, and compelling content that's going to help them convert from being interested into being qualified, from being qualified to being a customer. And then the other thing that we find with the surveys is you really start understanding how to invest in the right vehicles. So most companies go to trade shows. Most companies invest in search engine optimization with their website. Most companies get referrals. So to us, that's table stakes. The question is, what are the other campaigns that you can add to that that make sense and that are appropriate for your target audience? And so there are probably about 70 different ways that you can create demand for your solutions. And the key is to triangulate on the 5 or 6 that really are going to be appropriate for your target audience. So this is a great way to do that, is to triangulate on that. So the main key here is put it in demand generation engine, start doing it this quarter, and start reaping the reward of having predictable volume of leads per month. And after you do that, what you'll find as what we work with many of our clients is they'll come to us and say, you know, Bob, we need 100 new leads per month. And can you help us with that? And we can, and that's what we've done. And you want it to be consistent so that you've got predictability, you've got visibility, and you understand how the revenue creation process is starting for your company. So that's the first thing you can really do, is increase the volume and increase the quality of the leads that you have per month. The second area we like to talk about is reducing your sales cycle. Now, there is a correlation between having high-quality sales leads and also your sales cycle. So, for instance, if you have a shortage of leads, or if you have leads that are not qualified, typically that will help contribute to long sales cycles because that potential buyer is not ready to really be introduced or enter the sales process. The only way to get out of that is to have enough prospects or buyers at that quality stage where they're ready to go through the sales process with you. So what we want to do, though, is talk about ways that you can shorten the sales process and facilitate closure, because that's really kind of a big issue for many clients. Let me give you an example. And we're going to talk about a couple of different ways here. We talk about the sales acceleration engine. So this was the demand generation engine. This is the sales acceleration engine. We believe that a website should do more than just inform. We believe that a website should help guide your buyer through the buying process. In fact, today, when somebody hears about you, as we talked about earlier, the first place they're going to go is your website. And so this is one of our clients that we work with, a company called ICUC. They are a global social media management services company. They work with many iconic brands across the world. And it was interesting. We began with a survey with them, with their decision makers, and we found out that even though social media is a horizontal area, or horizontal solution area to be addressed, most of the executives, the vice president of marketing, the chief marketing officer, the head of social media for the company, most of those decision makers identified with their peers in the industry. So what we ended up doing here is we said, you know, if they're going to do that, they're going to come to your website and they're going to start on the buyer's journey based upon what vertical or industry they're in. So for instance, if I'm in retail, I really want to hear about retail clients that work with ICUC and benefit from their services. So this is how we architected the buyer's journey. The great news about this is self-service. This is 365, and it's on all the time. So I can come here and I can say, you know, I'm in retail and I'm on my buyer's journey. I'd like to understand what experience you have working in the retail industry. I'd like to understand what challenges you help me address. I'd like to understand more about the solutions that I could benefit from. And I'd like to understand who are some of your clients that you have, such as Whole Foods, REI, Target, Winners, and so forth. And then what I like to do is I'd like to go a little bit further. So what we did here is we created some calls to action for them. So for instance, if I wanted to understand how other clients are benefiting from ICUC services today, I'd click on this. And this is a success story on Macy's. So Macy's is the 800th store retail giant that has really used social media very successfully in terms of working with their customers, communicating information to them, and really having this interactive social presence. And what we've done here is we created other offerings that are specific for the retail prospect or buyer. So here is one where Edith is one of their managers focused on retail and really talks about what's important to retailers. We did a survey for ICUC focused on retailers, and so we found out what were the major issues that they had from a social media perspective. The reason I'm showing this to you is because what we're able to do with ICUC is accelerate the sales process, accelerate the sales cycle, because now it's not up to a salesperson to carry the full story. Now it's the website together with the sales conversations, together with the demand generation programs that are really helping to educate and convert prospects into be sales qualified leads for this company. So I hope that's helpful. And again, just to go through another example is let's say I'm pharma. So what we found is if I'm pharma, you know, that's nice that ICUC works with Starbucks. But I really want to find out what you do with pharmaceutical companies. And so again, taking through the same process, again, we're with Novartis, with Bayer, UCB. And then again, here is a great success story on Novartis. So anyway, this gives you an example on how you can accelerate the process. So again, this serves two purposes. One is accelerating the learning and preference setting for ICUC. The other thing that a buyer-driven website does, though, is that it enables you to give the same quality messaging and engagement to many other prospects or buyers in the company. So for instance, let's say you're selling to a enterprise, and let's say there's 20 people that are involved in the evaluation process along with one or two decision makers. When you have a buyer-driven website, it enables you to guide the other 10 people that didn't come to your presentation through the same quality process, so they too also benefit from being driven down the same processes. So you're keeping everybody on the same wavelength. Okay? So thank you for enabling me to share that with you. And let's continue with our thoughts and presentation. So again, the buyer-driven website is guiding the visitor through the buying process. And what we're really trying to do here is eliminate friction. So make it a frictionless buying process. Because what we find a lot of times is that if somebody comes to your website today and let's say they want a presentation, or let's say they want a demonstration. If what you have here is a web form that says sign up and someone will get back to you, then that becomes friction. And so we're all about trying to eliminate friction as we did with the ICUC buyer-driven website. So that's the second way that you can actually accelerate sales and revenue growth for this quarter. So let's talk about the third way. The third way is improving your sales conversions. So in the first funnel, it's about converting interest into sales leads. And we'll just talk through a litany of some different things that you could do and realize that some of these will work for you, some may not. But it's really starting to create that innovation in your mind about what should we be doing that's going to help us enable these conversions. So for your customers today or prospects, what's the biggest problem that you're going to be able to help them remediate today? Maybe there is a top business practices or best practices checklist that you can give to them. You saw some of the thought leadership that we did with ICUC. This is something that we help clients do, which is explainer videos. So really taking a video, whether that's be animated or whether it be talking about the CEO or somebody in the company, like the CMO or the VP of sales, present what is it that you do? How do you actually help enable success for your customers? Offering a best practices ebook or offering a sales or engagement infographic. So this is a great way to get conversions happening or accelerate those conversions. Because what we find a lot of times is that prospects may languish in that engagement process or sales cycle. And so you want to have different vehicles that take you further down that process. With the second funnel, it's all about how you convert these leads into opportunities. So one of the things that we do with many of our clients is help them create a buyer's guide. If somebody has never purchased or invested in your type of solution before, maybe they don't know how to do it. Maybe they don't know what they should be looking for, or maybe they don't understand, as they wander in the desert, why is it going to take so long to make a decision? So we figured out that a buyer's guide is a great way to engage with your buyer, help them understand what's important in terms of the decision-making criteria that they're using, and also guide them to some of the core strengths that your solution, your company brings to the table. Maybe offering a ROI or business justification guide would be fantastic. So maybe there's a capital appropriation request that they have to go through. And so what they need is some help justifying your solution. Another one would be a best practices infographic or even an industry expert interview, as we talked about earlier. So let me give you an example of what an ebook would look like here. That might be helpful for illustration purposes. Okay. So let me just go in here. One of our clients is a company called Logicware, and Logicware is a great company that focuses on serving global companies that are focused on international shipping, freight forwarding, and so forth. And so we looked at their target audience, we surveyed them, and then we helped them put together this buyer's guide. And this has really become a seminal piece, if you will, to guiding their buyers and prospects through the buyer's journey. So really talking about, if you're looking for a global logistics software solution, what's the key criteria? So we came up with the 5 must-have criteria, and we talked about why that's important to their business. And so we gave them the checklist. We went through each of these 5 criteria, and we found that this is just an incredible way to present Logicware's solution, as well as help educate the buyer what should be important to them as they're thinking through their decision-making process. So that's just an example of one of these things that we talked about here, a buyer's guide. Okay? And then how do you convert in the last funnel an opportunity to a customer? So in this stage, typically, and you may have many of your prospects at the stage right now today, going into fourth quarter, right now it's about risk. It's how do I mitigate risk? How do I manage change? How do I adopt your service today and say yes, as opposed to get into analysis paralysis? And so here's a great way to do that. Present customer success stories or present industry success stories if you can't use the customer's name. Add customer success videos. And by the way, if you came to our website on the homepage, there is a wonderful customer success story after you enter the homepage that automatically runs, and it's by Ray White, who's the Chief Performance Officer for ICUC. It's a 2-minute video that talks about how we work with him to help build success for his company. It could be a competitive matrix, or it could be just sustaining your customer reference database so that when it comes to the 11th hour and you're trying to close the business at the end of this quarter, you've got the right references available for that prospect or buyer. So we covered 3 so far. Let's cover the 4th one now, which is, let's say that you're really looking at an enterprise opportunity. And the problem with many cases when you're looking at an enterprise opportunity is that it can take many people, many different stakeholders to get involved to say yes. And so everybody has to say yes before you can get the opportunity signed. So let's talk about what I call land and expand. And that's something that a lot of companies are having success with. So the objective here is to start small and grow big. So here's some examples we'd like to just share with you today. Leverage what's called the freemium model, which is maybe you give your entry-level solution of service away for free. And as they start understanding the quality that you bring to the table, they then start looking at upgrading to paid services. Here's some other things that you could offer: a risk assessment, a diagnostic gap analysis, maybe a jumpstart program, a benchmark analysis. One of our clients that we work with works with data centers and private cloud offerings. And so they're really good at coming in and looking at capacity planning with the CIO or with the head of data center management for the company. So make sure that they're not going to be in a position where they're going to hit capacity limitations, whether that be physical limitations, whether that be cooling and power, or whether that be some other type of criteria that they're going to have in terms of information processing. Or here's an interesting one: invite a prospect to your user conference. So this is another great way to do that. Start small, grow big. So if you've got prospects this quarter right now, and you're in a situation knowing that they're not going to close this quarter, maybe there's a way for you to close a smaller opportunity and then parlay that into a bigger opportunity next year. Let's talk about the 5th way. The 5th way now for many companies is, as you're onboarding new sales representatives, new sales team members, is how do you get them up and productive immediately? So Forrester does a lot of surveys, much like we do for our clients. And they asked the SVP of worldwide sales, how long does it take to bring a sales rep up to speed, and how long does that take to get them productive? Meaning, how long does it take for them to do everything that you expect them to do? How long does it take for them to start hitting their prorated quota? And that's typically 7 months. So that's a long time. So what we'd like to do is think about how can you accelerate that learning process, and how do you actually be in a position where you can get somebody productive in 2 months, hit their quota on a prorated basis, and do that in 2 months as opposed to 7 months. So one of the things that we encourage is creating a sales playbook. And by the way, if you're interested, we could share with you examples of sales and marketing playbooks we've created for companies like ICUC, and for many other companies out there. But it really includes all of these things. It includes messaging, scripts, qualification questions, profile of the ideal customer, what Gartner calls competitive battle cards, and much more. The next thing that we typically do is organize all these sales tools around the sales cycle or the buying process. That way, everybody on the sales team or engagement team knows how and when to use these different vehicles and tools as they move with the buyer through the buyer's journey. Okay, now here's another question for you. And again, we've covered the 5 points, and I'm going to recap those with you again. But let's go ahead and have you participate in this poll. What area will have the biggest benefit for you to accelerate sales and revenue growth this quarter? Is it increasing the volume and quality of your leads? Is it reducing your sales cycle? Is it improving your sales conversions, deploying a land and expand strategy, or getting new members up to speed? So let me go ahead and launch this poll and appreciate everybody's participation in this question. So go ahead and, if you would, spend some time thinking through what's most important to you in terms of your takeaway from today's conversation. And as you're thinking about what can you apply today that's going to help materially make a difference for you this quarter. And by the way, there will be a recording I'll have of this webinar today, as well as slides that go with the webinar. So if you want a copy of those, just let me know, and I'll give you the contact information for me before the end of today's webinar. Okay, so thank you everybody for participating. We're still collecting responses, so go ahead and keep adding your preference here. And then what I'm going to do is share the results. Okay, so let me go ahead and share the results with everyone. Okay, so 7%, your takeaway basically is the number one thing that you can do is increase the volume and quality of your leads this quarter. That's great. 33% talked about reducing your sales cycle. A whopping 53% of you talked about improving your sales conversions. So that's fantastic. So if you've got prospects or buyers that are languishing in that, hopefully we talked through some different gambits, some different things that you can do to help re-engage with all of your buyers and your prospects and engage them in a meaningful way to move through the sales cycle with them. And then 7% talked about deploying the land and expand. So excellent, excellent, excellent. We appreciate your input on this. Okay. So we are a revenue acceleration agency. When we began working with our clients, we realized it's all about revenue. It's not about marketing. It's not about sales. It's not about just business development. It's about all these areas and thinking through how do you streamline this process? How do you really accelerate it? So does this methodology work? Let me give you two quick success stories. ICUC, and Ray White is on our homepage, and he has a video there. He came to one of these webinars, and this was 2.5 years ago, and he says, hey, you know, I'm creating 50 leads per month. I don't need 50 leads per month. I need 250 leads per month. Can you help me put it in the demand generation engine to get there? And that's what we did. We also have a team that set up 50 to 80 appointments per month for his sales team so that there could be really focused on engagement, focused on the conversation, and focused on qualification. We gave you an example of how we evolved their website so it became a buyer-driven website. And we looked at, instead of one market, 12 vertical markets based upon how their buyers were self-identifying. And finally, we helped them put in place a cross-sell, upsell program. So as they added more social media management services, their current customers could benefit from those services. Another example is AvidXchange. They're just a very successful company in Charlotte, and they are a cloud-based provider of accounts payable, paperless invoicing, and e-payment solutions. And when they came to us, they said, you know, help us figure out how to double revenue every year going forward. And so over a course of 4 years, we helped the company rocket from $6.5 million in revenue, annual revenue, to $65 million. And our team put in place 350 market qualified leads per month. We also put in 3 lead qualifiers to help them qualify those leads. And then not only win one market, but then expand into 6 markets. And it really was just a phenomenal experience that we've had working with the team here and making sure that DNA got transferred inside the company. So we serve many clients that we work with today. Some are startup companies, some are mid-stage, and some are large public companies. And so we want to talk about, based upon today's conversation, where can you go with this? And I want to give you some thoughts here, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A. So we have a number of webinars like this coming up, not only this month, but next month, and of course in December. And so in November, we're going to talk about how you can use customer success stories to accelerate the closing process. In December, as we look forward, we want to look at how do you engineer significant revenue growth for 2019. So it's all about putting the right plan in place, not only just the plan, but the execution program that's going to happen with that. And we have a fourth quarter offering for all of you that are attending our webinar today. And I'll be sending that out to you later today, which is if you'd like to do a complimentary revenue growth assessment with us, what we'll do is we'll look at 5 areas for you. One is the number of market qualified leads that you have today and what's optimal for you. 2 is the number of sales qualified leads. 3 is buyer validation that you're thinking about or that you put in place. 4 is partnerships, and how do you actually get the right partners that are going to drive revenue for your company if you don't have them already. And then 5 is how do you maximize the wallet share that you have with your current clients. So just wanted to share that with you. And of course, if you look at our website and you go to our events page, which I'll have right here, then what we'll see is come to the website on demandadvisors.com. And what I was talking about is the video that we have, a great 2-minute customer case study that we have of ICUC. And I didn't do anything here other than come to the home page, but you'll notice that automatically we have the video starts of Ray White, and he can walk you through what we've done working with them. On the events tab over here, as we go to the events tab, you'll see that you can register for these additional webinars that we have. So today's webinar is this one right here. November, we're going to talk about customer success stories. And December, we're really going to help provide the information that you may be looking for as far as putting together a plan to engineer significant revenue growth for 2019. So those are some offerings we'd like to share with you, as well as the one-on-one offering we talked about, which is this last one here, focusing on a revenue growth assessment that we can help you with. And we are here to really provide you with the information you're looking for to be successful. So that's our key. So what I want to do here now is open this up for questions that you may have, and let's make sure that we can address any questions that you have today. So again, thank you very much for coming in, and let me go ahead and answer these questions. We've got good numbers. So just Lynn, I'm going to make sure we send you a copy of the revenue acceleration map. Here's another question. In looking to attract net new customers, how often do you recommend you email nurture them? Quarterly, monthly? And so I would say monthly. I find that quarterly is too infrequent. The key here is one of the things that we do when you're finishing a market survey is put together a 12-month track of what you're going to use to message to your clients. In other words, what's important to them? What do they want to hear from you? And really creating a cadence with them, because if you just are doing nurturing on a quarterly basis, remember, think about yourself. If you get, let's say, 100 emails a day, and somebody sends an email to you, you may overlook it, you may delete it, you may be coming back from vacation, don't have time to look at the 1,000 emails that you have. So what you want to do is create a cadence. You also need to have some frequency to this so that you can give them the ability to opt in where they have interest and when the timing's right. Here's another question. How do you know which of these ideas will work best for your audience? And how do you align them with the different stages of the buyer's journey? For example, they may want to view a video initially but later in the sales process, a thought leadership book would be more helpful. So that's a great question, Stephanie. So what we want to do is, or think about here, is you want to be in a position where, as you look at moving through the different stages, you've got the right offerings that are going to help convert somebody to that stage. That's probably one of the major key takeaways that Craig and I and our team have learned over the past 10 years, is that when you're creating offerings for your target audience, it should do more than just engage them in interest. It should help educate and convert them on the buyer's journey as they're going through each step of the buyer's journey from one step to the next. The other thing that we find is that the market survey is really instructive for us to understand what's important to the buyer. That way, you're not going after and using, let's say, the wrong vehicles. Let me give you an example. An example would be that one of the ways that you want to reach your target audience is through social media. And that's great. So social media is a fantastic way to do that. But the question is, how much time does your decision makers, the target audience, spend being socially active? And so in one group, it may be everything for them. So for instance, for ICUC, since they're focused on social media, obviously everybody that they work with is focused on social media. So using social to get that audience is very important. Another client that we have, though, is primarily focused on solutions for CEOs. And what they find is that they're not that socially active. So having that as the key way to get to that target audience isn't going to work well for them. So having the right vehicles and not only having the right messaging offers is really key. And one of our big learnings, again, over the past 10 years is that marketing and understanding your buyer should be about engaging your buyer in a rigorous way. So if you close a large opportunity this quarter, the question you may have is, well, is that indicative of every potential buyer, or is that something that's really unique? And what we mean by that is that when you close a large opportunity, let's say AvExchange as an example, we talked about AvExchange. When we worked with AvExchange and we worked with them to close the opportunity, one of their clients was Regions Bank. And so initially, they weren't thinking about banking and financial services as a key market to go after. But what they figured out is that by us working with them to apply our survey method to decision makers in the banking industry, it wasn't just serendipity. It was a great market for them to go after with the right value proposition, the right offers, and the right information for their key audience. And so that's a great way for you to get the validation. A market survey also serves another purpose. And when you have investors or you have a board of directors, a lot of times what they're looking for from the executive team is validation that you really understand your buyer. So what we found with market surveys is it's a great way for you to provide the information in a summary format to the board of directors, and then be in a position to look at how you're going to justify the choices you're making in terms of engagement. What are the two most important questions that you always get at a board meeting? Well, the two most important questions are that I've always heard from board members is the first one is, how'd you do this quarter? And of course, the next quarter, after you finish off this quarter, fourth quarter 2018, is how is Q1 2019 looking? And so when you put in an engine like we talked about, that's going to give you the type of acceleration, it will also give you the visibility to look into future quarters. One of the questions that was posed by Michael is, do you create the buyer's journey websites for your customers? And the answer is yes, we do. So we work with many different solution stacks. We do prefer solution stacks like HubSpot is very good. We've done a lot of work with HubSpot. WordPress is also very good. and we work with different website development solutions desks as well. But we have a whole team that does just that work, as we did with ICUC. And so once we validate and map out the buyer's journey, now it's about bringing that to life with your buyer and figuring out how do they self-identify. Is it by vertical? Is it by industry? Is it by title? Is it by another attribute? So all of us really self-identify based upon different attributes, and really being able to help your buyer on the buyer's journey and accelerate that is a great way to do that. So with this, I'd like to thank everybody for attending our webinar today. I hope this was really beneficial for you to attend and really give you inspiration for this quarter in terms of how you can accelerate sales and revenue growth for this quarter, some of the strategic decisions you can make, some of the gambits you can put in place that will help accelerate that. You're always welcome to send us an email. So Craig and I, here's our email addresses. I'm Art Drakowski at ondemandadvisors.com. And then Craig is Remy at ondemandadvisors.com. Here's our website. And feel free at any point in time to reach out to us and about your ideas, your interest, your questions on us, and we're happy to get back to you quickly. So again, we'd like to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. We look forward to you having a very significant and profitable and successful Q4 for 2018. And we hope to contribute to that success as well as help you plan for a very successful 2019. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.